and I'm already awake. 4 hours. There better be hordes of Zaesians banging on my door for this to be worth it. Actually, there's no way I could handle that on my lonesome. 1 customer or 100. I have to get ready either way. Time for a makeover. Ooh. Going more gothic. Little girl! Whoa, look at the spiky hair. I bolt to the front door, but there's nothing there. Forces! Maybe I should make changes to this sleep schedule if I'm gonna be mutinying daily from now on. Little girl! Huh? Hello? Is it just me, little girl? Hello, it's just me, little girl. Where are you? Boo! Aha! How into the forces did you get in here? Oh my goodness, those are some large eyes you have, ma'am. They're kind of creepy. They're sucking out my soul. Oh. Whoa. Thunder roars not far from us. I take a deep, shaky breath in, trying to piece together any composure that remains. With these long, spindly legs of mine, of course, little girl. Why do you ask such foolish questions? Stars, this woman. Please, miss, could you refrain from doing that again? I don't want to cause an outburst. A outburst? How droll these over-city vermin are, with their infantile fears. Infantile? How do you genius undercity folk not risk chaos then? Don't be mistaken, I do not take myself for a genius, darling. Nor do I think you a fool. Not yet, at least. I am merely unaccustomed to your people's, how should I say, quaint practices. But I assure you I am not so different from yourself. I am sure you know why, little girl. Perhaps deep inside of you, there is a voice that tells you this simple fact. The simple fact that this life of ours. Oh, how all is so utterly meaningless. Okay. How amusing is that eye-opening factoid. Laura's right, I am scared. She's completely lost it. Marbles, bananas, nuts, coconuts even. She's lost them all. Why fear what has no meaning? Don't you think, little girl? No, and can we stop shouting, please? I just woke up. Miss Maribel. Call me Maribel. But my full name is Maribel Anastasia Frivolova. At least during this phase of the moon. Her eyes like twitching. What the actual F? It's high time, my petite petunia. You make me a dainty little ring. But not too dainty. It is for my husband, after all. You know how these men can be. They won't so much as put on an apron unless... Ring. Got it. Come back in a few. A few what, little jeweler girl? Girl? Do you fear me, girl? Yes. You're a creep. Let's do a little gold to brighten up the skin tone. They're very, like, very pale so far. Designs. Yes, I fear you, Maribel. Flaring Earth, I'm not so looking forward to this. No, I just have to take charge and do my job. I'll make her fear me. On the bright side, she seems very open. Maybe I can use this to my advantage. She had to be the first Zenesian, huh? They're not usually that strange, right? I got unlucky, so what? If she plays any more tricks on me, I'm kicking her out. It must be a front. She's hiding something for sure. I've been putting a lot of faith into Lau. I'd have never opened to Ciesa on my own. He's been trustworthy so far. I'll keep my wits about me. I don't know him that well. I reckon I still have a lot to learn about him, even after our chat last night. Forget opening to Zayessa. How did he convince me to become an enchantress? Don't act like you're blindly going along with this. I chose to do this, and I will. He treats me like his student, but Sensei, I'll surpass you one day. Just you wait. Okay, get back in the zone. After I wrap up, I'll have to face her again. No problem. I'll hold my ground. She's just a little eccentric, so don't take it to heart. Observe her well. I'm sure she'll reveal plenty about herself without her words. Beautiful. And yes, quite manly. I'm just packing the jewelry. A dark figure slinks past in the corner of my vision. I curse under my breath. She's not getting me this time. I finished your piece, Maribel. You can come out of the shadows now. Oh. Your weak disposition has made you more vigilant, is it? Excuse me? Disregard that impetuous comment of mine, dear Twyla. Did I ever tell her my name? Let us move on. Show me the shiny little fruit of your labor. I open the ring box and present it to her. Oh my, your youthful features belie your experience, my little duckling. How intriguing. I can't help but chuckle, and some tension releases from my shoulders. But I hear you possess another talent worthy of more intrigue. Do tell me, is it true you can enchant jewelry? Yep, that's right. I can transfer the energy from an emotion of your choice into this ring. She's definitely a bit odd, but perhaps my fears were misplaced. Excellent! You are exactly the delicious meal I've been craving. What? Yeah, never mind. Right, so you'll need to tell me... Yes, I have heard from my people below. Simply speak your story with true conviction, and the witch will capture your heart. What? I'm not a witch. And I don't capture hearts. Of course not. But you cannot expect a Zayessan bartender to tell tales free of embellishment. So that's how she heard of me. I wonder if she and her husband frequent bars. Maybe that'll lead somewhere. Or maybe not. Zayessa does have a much stronger drinking culture after all. Listen, darling, why not embrace the title of witch? I feel a witch is not evil, green and wrinkly, but powerful, mysterious and seductive. Seductive? I believe that is what I said. Okay, but still, I wouldn't say I'm powerful. What a coy girl. Here, listen to this and tell me it doesn't exude power. Legends tell of a witch that can coax out your innermost feelings with nothing but a sharp mind and a silver tongue. Well, when she says it like that... Maybe I don't mind a bit of Zayessian embellishment after all. And I guess being a witch doesn't sound that bad. Perfect. Then I will speak your legend and make you the Undercity's shining star. So choose, Twyla. Which witchy name befits this witchy dame? I can be a witch of jewels? No, the witch of Zenoa. No, not that either. The witch from above, the Twilight Witch. Forget witch, call me the Enchantress. How about we keep things simple? And forget the witch part. Just call me the Enchantress. Ah, woman of elegance. Sometimes simplicity itself possesses a certain complexity. Twyla, my enchantress, I will tell sufficiently embellished tales of your glory to my people below. Wow, thanks, Maribel. So then, that bartender you mentioned, was it you all along? You are mistaken, my tulip. I operate a bookshop. But in truth, it is not the bookshop that operates me, for the toll of time passage affects me least within its literary confines. A bookshop? Wow. Have you always wanted to run a bookshop? Not exactly. In my youth, I was misled by the bright, insufferable pleasures my city pushes into its people's faces. You may think Zayessa is a strange place, my sweet Twyla, and you would be right, of course. But in truth, there is a reason behind our madness. And that reason is why I find all this noise around me so utterly meaningless. What is this reason then? Why do you think Zayessa is so strange? Let us just say that not everyone has found the fulfillment I have. Not everyone has left the life of being constantly inundated with material pleasures to the point of it aiding their brains in the past. That's a lot to take in. I wonder what kind of life Mirabelle left in the past. Could you tell me more about your husband? You two like hanging out at bars, right? With respect, you would not catch me alive in those filthy undercity bars, dear. Not anymore, that is. As for my husband, he does reek of booze far more regularly these days, it is true. Yet I'm certain his problems do not reside in a bottle. For instance, that bartender likely causes more problems for old Mr. Frivolova than any drink ever could. To go so far as to bring those problems into my humble bookstore, despicable. What was a bartender doing in a bookstore? Who is this guy? He's merely a shameless snake, surreptitiously slithering into my sanctuary of stories, hissing about how my husband spends his nights in drunken depression since I stopped accompanying him to the bar. Isn't that kind of him, though? Yes, it would be kind, wouldn't it? If his words were not laced with venomous lies. Dear, you should have seen the perverse look about his eyes. It made me sick. Looking me up and down with a debasing glare. And he had the gall to claim my husband must not satisfy me. He was flirting? That's disgusting. It is. Preying on my husband's issues in an attempt to come between us? Her husband's issues? Sinking his fangs into my personal matters under the pretense of helping me. The vile snake. He told me of your enchanting abilities, a convenient way of slipping into a conversation. You know how bartenders are. Not sure that I do. It seems odd for this guy to go all the way to your bookstore for this. It must be different in Zenoa then. These Zayessan bartenders barely even tend to their bars. Instead, they tend to secrets, gossips, and dirt. They absorb information and use it to lure their nosy clientele. Can you imagine dedicating your livelihood to such nonsensical pursuits? Why don't they just serve drinks like normal bartenders? Well, first let me tell you a teensy bit more of this little world of ours below yours. You see, years ago, the powers that be in Zayessa decided that they would befit from being just slightly meddlesome. Taking inspiration from their once stoic brethren above, they began to giggle mischievously upon realizing just how much they could control. Ordinary gambling should be illegal, they decided, but let's make betting on bar fights a part of the Good Samaritan's daily routine. What? Let's limit how much people can drink. Serving, selling, possessing, and consumption of alcohol will now be limited to 4 standard drinks. Damn, I'd pay good money to see a Maribel do a stand-up comedy routine. Psych eddies are fun and all, but you can only do 1 sheet. And just what was the purpose of all of this meddling, my dear Twyla? Me? Unless you have a small baby Twyla in that pouch of yours, yes. Can you ascertain the purpose of this meddling from the Zayessian state? To ensure people's safety so people don't ruin their enjoyment? Trick question. There is no purpose. Nice try. Trick question. There is no purpose. Dear, you are an absolute riot, but you must be aware of that. Oh, am I wrong? I really thought it was right. Sadly, you are incorrect. Please do try again. I suppose it's so people don't ruin their own enjoyment. Now that I think about it, Zayasins are often very material. Ah, you got it there in the end. Yes, we are generally the material type, correct. The theory is that beyond a certain point, activities like drinking and gambling will overall result in a net negative amount of pleasure. Zayasa as a whole is brought more pleasure when people abstain from more than 4 standard drinks, so the state restricted how much you can drink. Simple, no? The state call it pleasure regulation. I like to call it a spoiled dinner policy. Huh? When a mother snatches sweets away from their child before dinner, she takes a small joy away, in the hope they enjoy their dinner more later. Just like the Zayasian state is doing with this cheeky pleasure regulation. That makes sense, actually. Indeed, on paper, the policy is quite sensical too. But ironically, taking away small joys angers adults far more than children. I'm ashamed to admit, I was one of those adults in my materialistic mid-20s, furious whenever the lollipop was snatched out of my hands. Alas, we were all barking up the wrong tree. But that's life, isn't it, dear? You bark like mad at a tree for years and then one day... Just a second, Miss Frivolova. You still haven't answered my question. About her husband? Huh? You've asked me a question? Yes. Why do bartenders in Zayasa not stick to serving drinks? Isn't it normal for bars to limit how much patrons drink anyway? And what are they trying to achieve with all the information they gather? That's a good question, Twyla. But I'm afraid it has a trite answer. After all, every one of these charlatans chase the same lover, money. With her glistening green skin, rectangular body, and a luscious papery texture. Or perhaps in her modern form, she was a sensual curvature of numbers on a digital marabelle. Forgive me, but what are you even talking about? No, I shall not forgive you. What are you talking about, Missy? You have not even ventured past the naive confines of Zenoa, have you? No. Then I suggest you heed my word. Many Zayasians lavish money as if it were some kind of ambrosia, greedily rampaging through life with a reckless disregard for their bodies, relations, lives, ethics, you name it. But it is not the root of the nonsensical collective Zayasan hive mind. I have to pivot back towards the bartender discussion. This might prove relevant, but she hasn't even mentioned her husband yet. Right, but... yes, I do remember your question. Those bartenders, you see. How should I describe them? In short, dear, it is like this. They are deceitful fools. The lot of them. And in fact, I am not talking about the bartenders only. No, this is all of them. All these frenzied Zayasian scoundrels with their eyes hungrily eyeing the next shot of dopamine. Even that fool of a husband of mine. Even her husband? Hold on, could we go back 5 tangents or so? This bartender, he lied about your husband being in a drunken depression? Yes, of course he lied. Do you not hear me, girl? What is the matter with all these incessant questions? Bartender this, husband that? Whatever happened to polite, respectful discussion? Was I a fool to believe those kind, innocent eyes of yours? Do they belie a reckless inconsideration of basic... I close my eyes and drown her words, taking a deep breath. I don't know where all of this came from. Her anger seems genuine too. Perhaps I hit a nerve? I need to stop this before there's a repeat of the situation with Lewis, but maybe I can spin this around. I steel myself, mustering some hidden resolve. Materialism. What happened to why fear what has no meaning? Your anger suggests you're concerned by all the materialism around you. Anger? You're right. It appears I am running low on composure. You are the perceptive type, aren't you, my sweet? You see, the vast majority of Zayasians are not as fortunate as me. They live thoroughly unfulfilling lives of what I have no doubt. Trapped in the prism of their ceaseless cycles of indulgence. Cycles? Prisons? Yes, they're hedonic cycles. They're prisons of pleasure. They squeeze all the juice out of one source of pleasure until it's completely drained and no longer provides any joy at all. Oh, right. And then they move on to another kind of pleasure until that's no longer satisfying, and so on. Exactly. And so on and so on. Ad infinitum, it never ends. I look around at these living zombies and I pity them. It is pure insanity. How anachronistic for such an advanced species to be set back by such fundamental misinterpretation of joy. Ah, Maribel. Why use big words when small words are okay too? And somehow I am the insane one? I am the zombie? I am considered stuck in the past for my pursuit of fulfillment? And even for how I look, how I dress? She does kind of have an undead 80s look to her now that I think about it. They tempt me towards content. They truly do. Yet, no, I must not allow myself to see malice in such folly, especially as you rightly stopped me from doing so earlier. It must somehow remain the most enduring human ignorance for a reason. It must. Well, I can't help you with finding that reason, of course. I mean, like you said, I've never even visited Zaessa. But I imagine there's another reason you should avoid content with your husband's issues, right? Ouch, my dear, please be careful. You'll cut me with a mind so sharp. But you are correct, of course. My husband is very much a similar situation. He has misinterpreted joy and is too prideful to listen to my words of advice. He will not heed a single word I utter. The fool continues to chase pleasure like a stubborn mutt chasing a bone. How it pains me to think some part of me loves this fool, that is willfully being led astray by the shiny synthetic toys of our city. And yet somehow he remains confounded at his lack of fulfillment. This man's judgment is beyond my understanding. So tell me one thing, to help me enchant this ring for your husband. You claim to have found fulfillment and to have moved beyond the hedonic cycle yourself. But how? Ah yes, I have not explained the one fortune most graciously bestowed upon me. I was lucky enough to come across something true one day. It was an ornately bound compilation of papers, commonly referred to as a book. Yes, I'm familiar with those. This book led me to an indescribable discovery. Hitherto, this encounter, something core to my being was lacking, yet I had not even realized it. Meaning, and his beautiful older sister, fulfillment. This must have been some book, if you found the meaning and fulfillment you lacked in it. Yes, well, if I'm honest, I'm not sure that it was entirely the case. Perhaps it wasn't so much the book itself that helped me, but the act of reading, a good environment, and a benevolent soul. At the time, the late owner of the bookstore, Mr. Nelson, bless his kind soul, was my boss. My desire was to laze away in the empty shop and earn easy money. You must know how few people read these days, dear. It's even less in Zaessa. I was not an upstanding individual back then, unfortunately. Please, my tulip, shield your innocent mind from my days lost in delinquents. Yeah, sure. You see, no, I cannot bring myself to say it. Such sacrilegious behavior in such an esteemed dwelling. Oh, how I was a swine. You must say it. After all, if you tell me of your past sacrilegious behavior, I can help your husband move past his own. A fair point. What a convincing, conniving little conversationalist you are. You see, I would regularly show up to this bookstore, significantly intoxicated. So pissed, I often could barely walk straight. Oh. Yes, I knew I could take advantage of the store's lack of business, so I did. Yet I was not aware how shrewd old Mr. Nelson was. The patient man easily noticed my disheveled state, and rather than fire me, he began asking more of me. One night, he had me out of the shop's front as drunk as a sailor, slurring out a sales pitch for a recent bestseller, A Leafless Dream. This will not do, the old man said to me afterwards, shaking his head thoroughly and muttering to himself. That was it, I thought. My drunkenness had lost me the job, which despite my behavior, I sorely needed. Here's the issue, Maribel. Old Nelson told me, you need to know this book well to sell it.
Oh.
I like this Nelson guy. As do I. So the man tasked me with reading this massive fantasy book. And of course I had no interest in actually doing it. But Mr. Nelson knew I lied about reading it. No amount of online summaries would suffice. So eventually I was pushed to actually reading the damn thing. And by forces did I find it difficult to read. Cute. A Leafless Dream was this sprawling fantasy story about this young girl named Izzy. This story saw her fight against oppressive demon rulers that sought to burn down the forest of her elven kind. Being thrown into a world richer with lore and complex word building was incredibly foreign to me back then. I pushed myself to slog through the pages. It was tiresome, painful even. Every page was a chore. But I told myself the job was worth it. I suppose I should be thankful. My money-hungry frenzy gave me something worthwhile in the end. Strangely, I found myself enjoying being grilled by old Nelson upon walking into the store. I had an answer to his every question. It is rewarding seeing him grin at my newfound understanding of this fantastical world and the nuanced conflict between the elves and demons. But it wasn't until I finally finished the novel that it hit me. Upon reading the last word, I felt something powerful swell within me, a joy like no other I'd experienced. I had finally done it. I had overcome all the trials and succeeded in reading this epic brick of a book. I'd conquered my own demons. And surprisingly, I felt grateful to have experienced such an enticing story, from start to finish. Grateful to witness Izzy grow and be part of her adventure. That's very wholesome of you, Mirabelle. I must admit you're right, it is. I found myself thinking of the book constantly and feeling everything it gave me once more. Every time I saw the cover in store, I felt that unbridled joy and the wondrous pull of Izzy's adventure once more. And every time I left the bookstore and returned to the streets of Zayasa or my thankless corporate job, I missed that feeling. Naturally, I began to move towards this newfound conception of joy in my life, and soon my priorities followed in accordance. Yet, even this joy began to lose its luster after a few years. Not all my books are equally brilliant, and there were only so many others, like A Leafless Dream, that could fill the emptiness within me. Gradually, I began to realize there is very, very little in this world that contains any meaning whatsoever. Wow, that took a dark turn very quickly. And absolutely nothing is truly rich with meaning. Really? Nothing? Correct. Look, answer me this. What does it matter if I accidentally trip over and smash a window in my apartment? What? How would that even happen? What kind of question? I asked for an answer from you, not more questions. Of course it matters. You need to fix the window. I guess it could be a good thing. Gotta fix it. I guess it's a pretty big deal. You'll need to fix that window and... Yes, I will of course have to fix my window. I cannot have those thieving infantile delinquents break into my home after all. Zayasa sounds like a scary place. And yet this issue we've burdened ourselves with is perhaps even more infantile than the delinquents. Think, This is just one window of my small apartment, which is just one piece of residence of many, many thousands in Zaesa, which in turn is only a small piece of a much larger continent, which again is only a fraction of this much larger planet of ours. Even this very planet is a speck of dust in comparison to the billions of stars, galaxies, and other space-like contraptions out there. And yet, we still stress about how much we need to repair that smashed window, right? Exactly. It is utter nonsense. That gradual realization was my calling towards nihilism. I began to feel the weight of my life's meaninglessness. Yet foolishly, the notion depressed me for some time. I could not seem to shake it, until I let the negativity dissolve beyond the negative. I realized that if such meaninglessness was indeed the state of reality, I may as well enjoy whatever futile fruits it had on offer. After all, if everything is meaningless, then what is there to do other than try to be happy? And I envisioned in that moment a venture that would bring about a more deeply rooted joy, sharing my newfound love of books. And so I took on more responsibility in the bookstore, and put in as much effort as I could into helping our customers find that love too. Stuck in the Zaesian way of life, such a simple, fulfilling joy had never even crossed my mind before. But this lifestyle was tough. I often questioned why I put myself through such suffering during those early mornings. But at the end of the day, I would look back and feel a slight contentness within myself that I was not accustomed to. So eventually I left the corporate life behind and leapt wholeheartedly into this pursuit. And that was it. From then onwards, a liberating, relentless optimism overwhelmed every depressing nihilistic thought that came across my mind. Oh, really? Of course not. If only such a thing could be so simple. But I try to aspire towards the ideal at the very least. Alas, my enchantress, what do you sense is the key emotion behind this fulfillment my husband so dearly needs? How shall you enchant this precious little ring? Where does her story leave me? Futility? Would that work? No, the futility was only one piece of the puzzle for Mirabelle. The single most important feeling in this situation, I can't put my finger on it. The key lies in that moment of realization, the epiphany that life fixated on pleasure is unfulfilling. What made her critical of that cycle of pleasure? Perhaps a kind of cynicism could work. Do you have any strong memories of feeling cynical that help you during this point? Cynicism. A bit specific, but I sense the direction you're heading, my child. Yes, something is not quite right. Does cynicism not imply a malice, a contempt towards those stuck within hedonism? You don't feel content towards Zaesians for their self-destructive habits? I do, yet I don't think it is part of what makes this optimism, nihilism, help me. Yes, that makes sense. Again, you are very close, dear, but content is not what led me to seek fulfillment. What do I do? Think, Twyla, think. What could possibly be the key here to pull someone away from pleasure and towards lasting fulfillment? What could it be? I search my mind desperately, Maribel's expecting gaze lingering above me. An emotion that causes an epiphany, causes one to rearrange their priorities. Twyla? Yes, sorry. I just need a second to think. Think to your heart's content, then. I will take a page out of Mr. Nelson's book and muster some patience. Think. Nothing. I have nothing. This is so beyond me. Nihilism. Hedonic cycles? This is all too much. It never even crossed my mind. What happens if I falter at this moment? I close my eyes in an attempt to focus, but it is in vain. My mind continues to scramble, helplessly between all the information Maribel has thrown towards me. I'm helpless. A whisper in my head beckons me to give up. Don't waste any more of her time. Just accept it. You failed. Why are you still trying? Hope? Immediately, in an agonizingly familiar junction between the hallways of my mind, a light flickers on. Tua. I almost don't recognize the memory that appears before me. It feels like another life, when Mum called me Tua. She would say it so affectionately. It'd remind her of when I was a toddler, struggling to say my name. That day, I was contemplating all afternoon about how the other kids at school kept beating me in chess. About how they were so much smarter than me, and I'd always lose no matter how hard I tried. Usually, when I wanted ice cream, Mum would give me a firm no. I could beg all I wanted, but her answer wouldn't change, she'd say. But that day, as we sat in the car after a full hour of grocery shopping, she whipped my favorite kind of icy pole from behind her back. Her eyes twinkled as she said something that, to this day, I have kept stored away in the depths of my mind. Tua, I would rather you try your best and fail, than succeed without trying at all. Mom, how could I just leave? No, focus. I will not falter just yet. Think. Or perhaps, like in Jazz's case, the answer lies in the customer. Oh, how could I be so stupid? Of course, it's that simple. Maribel? Oui, I am Maribel. Tell me, what was the exact moment that you were able to break out of that personal prison of pleasure you'd found yourself stuck within? That would be... Oh, yes. It was the day I left the corporate life behind for good. Okay, hit me. I believe this is what I need to enchant your piece. So I want the whole story. Don't spare me any details. As you wish then, but you must know beforehand, in my early years, I idolized wealth to the extreme. Perhaps even more than the average undercity rodent. I yearned to enter the corporate rat race and climb up the ranks. I was desperate to secure myself a lavish, indulgent lifestyle. A huge sprawling mansion, a luxury car, the most expensive clothes I could get my hands on. All of that. From my early teens, I had my sights set on a grand ambition. I would become a CEO. A disposable army of workers would be under my influence, and all of their efforts would secure my wealth. As you can tell, I was not the most pleasant child in school. Right. I do not feel any sympathy for the slimy rascal of a child I was. Yet I can see how my mother's narcissism and general negligence affected me. Perhaps if your dinner is often a single, meager slice of bread, dreams of willpower and wealth come naturally. I'm sorry, Mara. I haven't spoken to the hag in forces knows how long. But you see now why I dreamt of becoming a CEO. Yeah. So I dived into an administration position at some tech company after university with eyes greedily fixated on management positions. I used every clean and dirty trick in the book to work my way up. I went from an intern at a sweet age of 21 to the supervising manager at a salty 24. Unfortunately, each virtue I exhibited in my work, I matched with a vice in my personal life. I spent lavishly, indulged in cigarettes, psyched eddies, booze, but I have told you of my days in hedonism. So I had to work odd jobs during the weekends and evenings to support my foolish lifestyle, which eventually led to Mr. Nelson's bookstore and the beginning of my redemption. It had been around a year working weekends at Mr. Nelson's and many more vying for the next elusive executive position on the road to CEO, regional manager, and one day in my mid-30s, after we'd completed a large marketing project that I oversaw, my moment came. I was offered the position. Did you enjoy this lifestyle? I don't understand how you could keep at such a pace for so long. Yes. If it were a true enjoyment, I'm finding it a touch difficult to identify in hindsight. But I know that during those early days when I was swept up in the feverish intensity of my youth, my eagerness knew no bounds. As I got further along in the rat race, however, it became less and less rewarding. Alas, I did not think much of this. I was too busy sucking up to the higher-ups, a desperate little bootlicker, through and through. But this changed when you were offered the regional manager position? Ah, yes. It was my first time meeting the CEO, Diana Prim. And naively, I was expecting some more. Someone happier, more satisfied? Precisely. Indeed, there was a quiet sadness to this woman that even my mind-addled husk of a person back then could recognize. It was... She trails off, brows furrowed, trying to recall something. She was overworked, stressed. Yes, Twyla, you've reminded me. Diana left several times during a brief meeting to take calls. I could hear her speak by the door, and I was shocked. She did not speak like a commanding, powerful, metaphorical, moustache-twirling businesswoman I expected. Far from it. Diana sounded completely exhausted and lost. Stars in my eyes, I ignored these concerns. I was ready to take on the job no matter the work thrown in my way, I said. Fortunately, the CEO did not welcome my haste. She told me repeatedly that this was a big decision with a lot of responsibility involved, that I should make sure I truly want this. Responsibility, I thought. But she was adamant I take my time deciding. I did not think much of Diana's words, but concern festered in the back of my mind that I tried hard to ignore. Don't be silly, of course I want this. I've been working towards it for years, I told myself. And naturally, I could not end the night after a promotion without going out for some drinks and getting biblically tarnished. The next morning, I came down with a terrible fever and could not attend my bookstore shift. I figured it was hangover related, but my doctor told me otherwise. My cortisol levels were high and he suspected the fever was due to constant overworking. As I rested at home, miserable and bored, I could do little but reflect on everything going on. Diana Prim's tired face and firm words on responsibility kept returning to my thoughts. Make sure this is what you want, what you truly want. The objective reality of it all came crashing down. I had wanted to be in her shiny little shoes my whole life. I needed the power and wealth and influence, the ecstasy that came with exerting such dominance, such stature. But in truth, did I? Here it is, the turning point. Time to focus. And even if I did, was this even achievable in reality? Or just a fantasy? And so the seed of doubt was sowed. Doubt? Of course! I realized my previous promotions were not as rewarding as I'd anticipated, and that I needn't endure such a maximal lifestyle. These thoughts were like fertilizer to a seed, and with them, there was no stopping the doubt from germinating. I hang on to every word Mirabelle speaks, placing myself in her shoes. I need time to think and recover. I took a couple weeks off. I thought on my work, my leisure time. Did I feel any pride or lasting joy? A strong sense of doubt towards her lifestyle, towards her beliefs of what her personal happiness looked like. These answers were harder to come by than I'd like to admit. There was only one certainty during this phase of fragility: the bookstore. I sorely missed working at the bookstore, so I took another few weeks off and took on more shifts. The days at the bookstore were slow, simple, but I felt full of joy, proud. I could scarcely believe my feelings. Old Geezer Nelson was so glad to have a helping hand around that he offered me a full-time position. Suddenly I had a choice to make. I was torn. Was leaving behind my life's work truly an option? But I knew the answer when I had begun losing interest in my indulgences. The bars of the prison of pleasure started becoming visible. And for every first time, I realized just how shallow I was as a person. My dreams and desires severely lacking meaning. They were purely material. At the core of my being, who was I? An extreme transformational doubt towards her ideals, a skepticism of what belief constituted herself. A skepticism. Skepticism. I can feel a few different emotions here. Which one here is skepticism? It'd be what, like anger and sadness a little, maybe? Maybe like this one? That doesn't feel like skepticism. No? Fear. Interesting. Last one. This is skepticism. Transfer the chaos into the jewelry. I need to match its core emotions in the order the spirit requires. Okay. There you go. Infused with skepticism. Ooh, purple. I clutch the ring box tightly and welcome Maribel's skepticism into my spirit and direct it through my fingertips. My fingers tingle with frenetic energy and I exhale. Finally, the skepticism all but fully exits my spirit, leaving a small visceral imprint on me. Gradually, I left that hideous hedonistic prison, one lanky limb at a time, and faced the noise. After 15 long, tireless years, I strolled into the CEO's office, rejected my promotion, and resigned on the spot. Horses, what a story, Mari. That's just radiant. Thanks to your help, I was able to enchant your ring with skepticism. A skepticism towards one's beliefs of what gives their life joy. Stars, aren't you a wise beyond your years? That's perfect. Skepticism is exactly it. And can I just say, a scarcely noticed thing, Enchantress, you have blessed us once more. Sorry it took me so long. I'm still new to this, you see. Nonsense, girl. You have clear talent, and not just in your conduit abilities. That was an experience, quite therapeutic even. Horses know I've learnt more about myself through this discussion than any book has ever taught me. And I thought I'd blundered terribly. That's some high praise. That's so great to hear, Maribel. But I should head back down to the Undercity. Zayessa must hear of your prowess. Let us hope this ring and my husband gets along nicely. I hope so too. See you later, Maribel. It's finally done. The first day is done. So tired. I close up, even though I should be open a couple more hours. Whatever, I'm not dealing with another customer. Finally, it's only for 4 hours, but sleep is sleep. I start to feel sick thinking of waking up in 5 hours and doing this all over again. No, stop. Stop. Sleep. No thoughts, just sleep. Besides, what good is a couple hours extra sleep when I'm just a speck of dust in an endless universe? Right, Maribel? I can't help but giggle at my own joke as I bury my face into my pillow and squirm around like a lunatic. Sleep arrives as warm feelings linger on the horizon. Maybe, just maybe, doing this all again won't be so bad after all.